The game, the game, the game. Before we get into our advertiser listing, fellas, I really wish we would have recorded this podcast immediately after the game. We did do our instant videos, which did really well, as to be expected. But How badly did you want to do another podcast right after that game?
I could have easily went on for a couple hours on my own, probably, about that game.
I tell you what, I was working during the game, but we had it up on a side monitor, and the one play that I happened to watch right as it happened live was Donovan Edwards' first long touchdown run, man. And I just jumped out of my seat. It's awesome. That game, Matt, you were kind of tweeting out, and we'll get into it later, how my whole generation, we've always kind of viewed Michigan State as the rival. These last 2 years, it's really kind of swung the other direction, where it's back to let's beat Ohio State, and let's do it year after year. So it was just awesome to see that happen, and to do it in Columbus. Like Harbaugh said post-game, this is the best place to sing the victors, is right here in Columbus. So what a game.
Amen. We'll definitely break it down, get more into it. We'll have lots of thoughts about it for sure, but this is episode 244 rather of the 3 Point Podcast. We're teamed with Skymint Cannabis, Michigan's leader in the industry, over 15 locations throughout the state. Check out the new Skymint Reserve, and if you're over 21, go online at skymint.com, sign up for the rewards program, all kinds of great stuff there. Skymint's your one-stop shop for pain relief, help sleeping, or just chill out on a Saturday night beating the Buckeyes. Skymint still offering the coupon code 3.20 at the Corunna store, 20% off Skymint products only and new customers only. Also, we're proudly partnered with Memorial Healthcare, home of the Now Community Wellness Center. Sign up, get yourself in shape, and a whole lot more. The over 100,000 square foot facility features full medically based wellness center featuring state-of-the-art workout equipment, fitness classes, an indoor track, and a whole lot more. Memberships also include sauna, a lap pool, locker room, private showers. For more details, go online at memorialhealthcare.org or call 989-720-CARE. Also want to thank our local partners, AZEE Printing Solutions. They've done some great swag for us. Also want to thank Capital Sports Fieldhouse, Pro Real Estate and Auction, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, and fellas, let's send a big shout out right now to Rivals, Taphouse, and Grille. Jamie and Lisa over there, they've been on board since day one, and they just have transferred ownership to new owners starting this coming Wednesday. We're recording on Monday night, but I tell you what, it has been great teamed up with the folks at Rivals with Jamie and Lisa there.
Yeah, I think we'll all be curious to see what direction it goes. We think it's such a cool setting, especially for the Corunna, like Owosso area, to have a sports bar like that, like a great open, ton of screens, everything like that, a spot to go watch Michigan State, Corunna, even they're streaming high school games even on Friday nights. So such a cool spot, but as you mentioned, they've been on board since day one. So awesome partners. We've done some really cool events with them for, Michigan State games, Ohio State games, stuff like that. So sad to lose them maybe, but good luck to everything they're doing here in the future.
Yeah, it's been a great spot for the last 6 years. I remember when it first, opened as Cafe Sports originally, basically kind of went downhill immediately. They kind of swooped in and had a really good business there for 6 years. And, I'm just happy for them that they sold it. And like you said, they've been with us since day one. So wish them the best of luck with wherever they go next.
Yep. And food is really outstanding. And I got to tell you, their burgers about the best in the entire mid-Michigan area, without a doubt. In fact, I did go out there Saturday. I watched the Michigan game at home because I knew I was going to be on pins and needles for that one. But went out there Saturday night, saw the boys at Chi-Town, and I'll tell you what, the place was absolutely jam-packed. So it was a good time for everybody. Well, we're going to have a fun podcast, I do believe, because we are going to get into the game. We're going to also talk the Lions on Thanksgiving, and our prep spotlight will recap the MHSAA football finals. Jared had a big part of that, but, catch up. Thanksgiving, I know, Matt, you were out of state. Jared, you did get the day off, but you worked very hard during the weekend. Let's just do a brief catch-up here, fellas.
Yeah, Thanksgiving, we always love talking about food for Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Christmas, whatever. So I'm curious to hear, the quick little breakdown of the food that we went into. I definitely had my 3. I got plenty of bread, plenty of cheesy potatoes, and I did get plenty of green bean casserole. That was even my breakfast the next day. We all woke up the next day and we're like, what's breakfast? Is it going to be cereal, whatever, eggs? We're like, let's just have Thanksgiving dinner for breakfast. Who cares?
Not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea. So it was fantastic. Yeah. So I was in Tennessee at my wife's family. Everyone was there, all her siblings, all the in-laws and all that kind of stuff. We got together. It was a beautiful day. We hung out, ate some food, had some drinks, had a little campfire afterwards. So it was a great Thanksgiving, and the food was phenomenal. I ate way too much, of course.
Yeah. I mean, a great day. And the thing that was funny to me was, my girlfriend came for the first time to our family Thanksgiving. And as we were leaving, she was like, "That's the best like Thanksgiving meal spread I've ever seen in my life." Which, we take it for granted sometimes with our family. We got a lot of good cooks in our family. My mom, my Aunt Jenny, go up and down the list. And we always have just these
Ted, of course, right?
I'll give it to my wife. She makes a great, it's called funeral corn, but it's like a corn casserole.
I mean, even on, we have cookouts in the summer. We have, our Thanksgivings, obviously. We always have great spreads at our family. No wonder we're all like so freaking fat. I mean, we have some great food spreads. And that's just kind of I thought that was kind of cool to hear that, we really do it better than most.
Yeah, that is cool to hear. And again, kudos to my sister Jenny and her husband Joe. Joe was on turkey duty, and there's nothing worse than going to Thanksgiving and having a dry turkey. But this baby, I won't use the word moist because it grosses out people, but juicy. It was very juicy and delicious. And I don't know, Jared, did you even eat a piece of it?
I had a couple pieces. I shouldn't. As soon as I put them on my plate, I think I left like a piece or two on there. Not that it was bad. It's just kind of turkey is what it is. But no, like you said, the corn, the butter noodles. Those were my two highlights of the meal.
That's what I was going to ask. With your girlfriend going for the first time, did you adjust your food eating habits? Were you eating more responsibly, or was it still just like shoveling it in?
Yeah, well, I mean, because I ended up going to her family Thanksgiving after, and I seriously think I had like a little spoonful of stuffing, and that's about all I had like left in my stomach to eat. So I definitely should have maybe paced myself a little bit better. But I mean, we have such a good food spread, man. It's hard to stop sometimes.
Yeah. What was funny, Matt, is at least I laughed about it. There was quite a few people there. And my sister's living room she had 4 big 6-foot long tables kind of butted up together, to form one big table. And Jared was sitting with the little kid table in the other corner of the room.
Well,
with his brother.
And how we set up these tables. I mean, I have 2 younger cousins that are like 13 years old. Somehow they're at the adult table, and somehow these 25-year-olds and older are at this kids table. I don't know. I'm not in charge of it. I'm not gonna complain too much because the food was so good, but it was a little bit perplexing how it was set up.
Now, is this like assigned seating, or is it first come first serve? Or
no, it's assigned.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a sign. We have little name tag ceramic things that my Aunt Gloria had for years and years, and almost everybody's name's still on it. So
nice. That's cool.
My sister Jenny lays it out how she wants it. She's boss.
I mean, am I wrong? Was it not a little bit confusing how it was set up, or is that just me thinking that?
Maybe it's just you used to sit at that, as a child, so you just continued it on.
Yeah.
Why move you to the adult table? Just stay at the kids table.
Yeah. I wouldn't use the word confusing because it had name tags, so it's pretty clear. All right.
Ted, what was the highlight? No green bean casserole for you, but
highlight
the turkey
actually
was good.
Was the and let me get the term right. Is it stuffing or dressing?
Stuffing.
Okay.
Stuffing is
the stuffing was phenomenal. I've never had stuffing that good. My sister made that, and I told her so. I mean, I've got a little bit in my fridge right now as a leftover. It was outstanding.
It's funny I'm sorry. Go right back.
Go ahead.
That's exactly what my girlfriend pointed out was the stuffing. It was incredible. It was very good.
So not just stovetop. This was probably like handmade or something.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't stovetop. I think it was bought. Part of it was from a bag. I forget the name of it, but she added a lot to it, and it was cooked perfectly. For crunchy. A good stuff. Yeah, you have to have a crunchy crust on a good stuffing, and it was very delicious. And again, like I said in my food last week, the turkey was great, and the mashed potatoes and gravy was great. And even the buttered noodles. I mean, you can't go wrong. I did stay away from the corn or from the green bean casserole, though. Yeah. Not my favorite.
Classic. What was the highlight of the desserts? Let's just say that real quick. My wife made this apple crisp type of thing. That was really good. There were a couple pies, but I'm not a big pie fan. So for me, it was that apple crisp that my wife made.
I'm not a huge dessert guy in general, especially the Thanksgiving desserts. I've never really loved them. So what my favorite thing is the turkey sandwich with mayo and bag of chips. That's usually my version of dessert on Thanksgiving night.
Nice.
Yeah. Did you guys realize, my dad, Bud, the 92-year-old that got quite a bit of commentary on our instant reaction video. One nice lady, I don't know who she was. Maybe she's a follower of you, Matt, but she thought he was 80.
Hey,
Nice.
that's not bad.
No, that's pretty good. But he likes his turkey sandwiches with mustard. I don't know. I've never heard of that before. Mayo, yeah. Mustard, I don't know.
I mean, I do mustard. I guess, yeah, I've never thought of this. I put mustard on if it's like deli turkey, and I'm making a deli meat sandwich.
Okay.
But I've never done it with turkey. I guess it would be the same thing, but
Sure.
I've never done it with Thanksgiving turkey.
I don't have any problem with it. If it's by itself, that's gross. But if it's mustard and mayo, then I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you're
I'm kind of a
mayo.
mustard
It's got to
mayo
be
guy
mayo
too.
for you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's enough food talk. That's enough Thanksgiving talk because we got Michigan football to talk about, and we're going to get right into that right after this. All right, guys. I mean, that had to be the most impressive second half of football I think I've ever seen. It was a little dicey in the first half, but they just put it into gear. Harbaugh coached his ass off. He had new plays set up. JJ was throwing the deep ball. I mean, all around that second half was about as satisfying a second half of football I think I've ever seen.
There's a term that the kids use, Jared's generation use. Harbaugh was in his bag. I mean, he was pushing all the right buttons. He knew exactly what to do. This team, ever since JJ McCarthy took over the jobs, week 2, week 3, whatever, they've been a second half team. As frustrating as it is as fans to watch these games and see them kind of start off slow, maybe it's a close game, maybe even losing in the first, second quarter, they make these adjustments at halftime. And I forget the stats, I could look it up, but basically they've outscored teams like 90-3 in the fourth quarter, and they're just completely shutting teams down. They drain you down. And you could see that's what they did to Ohio State offensively and defensively. The offensive line just, wears people out. And even without Blake Corum, who, may still get a Heisman invite, probably not, but, he was up for Heisman contention. Without him, you go to Donovan Edwards and he just steps right in and rushes for over 200 yards. And I mean, it's just like, you don't want to be too slappy-ish, but this program is absolutely humming, and they've got depth because you can lose a Blake Corum, and you've got Donovan Edwards just stepping back in. The receiving core that we've ripped on for the last 4 or 5 weeks, they actually stepped up and made some plays. Loveland, the young tight end, was making some plays. I mean, the one thing that I'll finish my little spiel off here. So Mullings, he played running back in high school, but that was 3 years ago. He's a linebacker now with Michigan. He comes in on that one carry in the first half on a 3rd and 1, gets stuffed, and everyone is blowing up. Who the hell is this guy?
I didn't like it.
No carries all year. This is a huge spot in the game. How do you give this guy this carry at this point in the game? All to know that Harbaugh was just setting up the play that they did in the third quarter or whatever, the little halfback jump pass. And it just goes to show Harbaugh knows what he's doing, man. He's a hell of a coach. I mean, the criticism was warranted 4 or 5 years ago when he wasn't beating Ohio State, but he's one of the best coaches in the country. You can't say otherwise.
No. I mean, yeah, and a lot of people will be talked about, Edwards, McCarthy. This game was one on the headsets, man. I mean, Harbaugh, I feel so good about this rivalry going forward, knowing that we have the better coach. I mean, Ryan Day basically spent this whole last, calendar year doing everything he could to beat Michigan, getting the new recruiter or the new defensive coordinator, which, I mean, that was like watching something that Dr. Brown, Dr. Blitz, would have done with Michigan way back in the day. I mean, what were they doing? The zero coverage, the sending the house. I mean, it's not like we were running the ball, as well as we had in games past. I mean, up until those 2 long runs by Edwards, basically when the game was already over, we had done nothing on the ground. And it was just perplexing to watch what they were trying to do against us. I mean, that's the one way JJ McCarthy is going to beat you, is just leave these guys man-to-man on islands and just, 50-50 balls, and we'll take our chance. I mean, Harbaugh was dialing it up. Minter, what a great coordinator. I mean, we lost 2 coordinators. Ohio State, quote-unquote, improved at the coordinator positions, and It's like nothing changed, man. I mean, what a great game. I mean, Harbaugh, credit to us as Michigan fans, and credit to Ward Manuel, especially, for not pulling the trigger on firing him, 2 years ago. They came to a really, creative kind of agreement where, we're going to drop your salary a little bit. We're going to have a lot of incentive laden. And Harbaugh, credit to him for not getting a little bit too butthurt about it, going to work. And we've seen the results, man. I mean, this program is really humming. Like you said, Matt, I don't see how it's going to change in the years to come. I mean, we've lost coordinators. We've lost, the number 2 overall pick. We've lost pass rushers. We've replaced new quarterbacks. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's whoever steps into this team is making plays. And I just love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a very impressive win. I got a comment that, let me just throw this out there. We're pretty giddy right now. We went in there and kicked their ass at Columbus. One game, right? Do we want to see Ohio State again in the college football playoffs?
No.
I agree.
I wouldn't even want to see Illinois again in the Big Ten championship. I just always think rematches on a neutral field is just weird.
I could get real cocky and say, yeah, we kicked their butt already. We're going to do it again. But no way, karma-wise. I mean, if they sneak somehow into the playoffs, and as it stands right now, we're recording on Monday night, more than likely it's going to be Georgia number 1. I think Michigan has a legit case to take the number 1 spot, but I don't think they will. Michigan will be number 2. I think it's pretty much a given. TCU will be 3 and Southern Cal probably 4, right? So with Ohio State just on the outside.
Ohio State, I mean, how can you watch what you watched on Saturday and think they deserve a spot in this playoff, man? Right. I mean, that was at home with like a half healthy Michigan team, and we just spanked them. I don't
drubbed.
Yeah, it doesn't seem right that Ohio State should make it back. I mean, it would take a lot of things to fall for them to get there. But if that does happen, I'm not scared of them. I feel the same way that Ohio State probably felt years ago, where it's like, we own you. We are just confident rolling into that game every week. I know, they would have some adjustments, I would hope, because God, that was the worst game plan I've ever seen in my life. But I'm not scared of them. I mean, you know who I'm scared of? I'm scared of Georgia. I'm scared of SEC teams. I'm not going to be scared of another Big Ten team. Maybe we might lose, but compared to potentially facing an Alabama or somehow, some way finding our way to Georgia in that first semifinal game, I'm not scared of Ohio State.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm not scared of anybody. And to tell you the truth, I think if Michigan's going to win a national championship, this is a great year to do it with what they got going on. This is the year. And I'm just, I could be a big man and say, yeah, I'm not scared of Ohio State, and yeah, let's bring them on. I just don't like the fact that you already beat a team once, and then to have to replay them again in a national championship atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
I'd still lean to Michigan, but I don't want to play them again. Stay out, go away.
Yeah, it's just tough to beat a team twice. It's kind of what it is. I mean, they've already seen what we did. I think Michigan is clearly the better team. They obviously proved that. But, to beat a team twice is kind of tough, especially, Ohio State is good. They are a really good team. But, man, Michigan they dialed everything up perfectly. You could tell in the first half, I was, again, getting frustrated. But, C.J. Stroud was just throwing darts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But they were all like 6-7 out routes, 6-7 yard out routes, a little hitch, a little hook, like it was just like ding, 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 ding. Marvin Harrison had a couple like insane catches too, but it was like, man, what are we doing? No pressure like there. And you could just tell like our defense is the definition of bend, don't break. They're going to give teams, a little bit of yards, but once they get inside the 30, especially inside the red zone, that's when they tighten up. And, they usually force a field goal or they cause a couple turnovers, which they did, against Ohio State. So.
You saw it. I mean, look at the differences. Ohio State going for broke on these blitzes and just leaving these guys by themselves. I mean, Cornelius Johnson, who saw this guy coming through and becoming just a Michigan hero?
Definitely not me.
No. Made a couple big time plays. I think his, that first touchdown he had on that little
turned the game.
That basically was what this offense has been looking for this entire year.
Right.
We just never had a play like that really kind of jolted us to life, and especially like a throwing play that kind of sparked McCarthy, gave him some confidence. And from there, I mean, it was easy sailing. It was fun to watch, man. And another big takeaway, Mike Sarin still. As my buddy said it on the phone call, back to my apartment today, he said 5 star is going to 5-star. I mean, he was maybe in the wrong position. At wide receiver, we finally kind of figured out, hey, this guy should be a defensive back. I mean, imagine if he was a defensive back the last 4 years. Imagine where he might be on draft boards. He was impressive. Guarding the best wide receiver in the country, doing a damn good job. Biggest play of the game, knocking it out of Stover's hands. That's just a guy that you love to root for. And, number 0, what a fun guy to just have on our team.
Well, and then to go with that, they showed the video over and over before the fourth quarter. He was at top of the huddle, just screaming his head off. Who knows what he was saying, but basically step up. It's the fourth quarter, and they did. And then I don't know if you guys saw. I think we retweeted it at 3 Point Pod, but the post game presser with Harbaugh, Sainer still comes in and like rubs his shoulders and says something, and Harbaugh, they like give each other a hug and they tell each other they love each other and stuff, and it's just like that. Former athletes like us, that gives you the willies, because like that's the stuff that makes playing sports special. Like Cornelius Johnson scoring 2 big touchdowns, Donovan Edwards busting 2 at the Horseshoe. That's all awesome, but that's the kind of stuff. They're brothers for life, as you always hear about. I mean, that locker room's got to be so close right now. I can't even imagine.
Oh man, they got the mojo going for sure. And what was so cool about that game after looking at it, I'm glad it was a noon kickoff, man. If that would have been a night game and coming off that win, I would have got no sleep at all Saturday night.
Yeah, it's funny. I mentioned I was in Tennessee with my wife's family. Admittedly, they're all not very big sports fans. Like, they could not care less about watching the game. A couple of them were a little interested in this one. One of my brother-in-laws is a Michigan fan, so he was all about watching it. Yeah. But it was one of those where like everyone, we met up at my wife's mom's hotel. They were staying at a hotel. We all met there. They were going to be a pool party and stuff like that. But I was like, we got to make sure the game is on the TV. Yeah. Like, I can't miss this. So we're all in there, we're eating pizza, and we're all in the same hotel room. Kids are all over the place, jumping on the bed, going crazy. I'm just like kind of in the back. I'm just trying to like keep my cool. Every big play, I'm just like Adam Sandler and Big Daddy when the kid is sleeping and he's like, trying to like giving like little fist bumps to my brother-in-law that's also a Michigan fan. We were just like trying to keep our cool, but come that fourth quarter, it all came out. I was like, I don't care, man. When Upshaw got that interception, and then when Page got that last interception that really sealed it. Yeah, man. I think I tweeted out, but one of the coolest parts about watching these highlights over and over and over again is seeing that it was at Ohio State. I don't know what it is. Like at the Big House last year.
I've never seen that in my life. I've never seen it.
I mean, I remember, you don't, Jared, but I remember Drew Henson, and there's some other games at the Horseshoe, where Michigan won. I don't know if they were like that though. I mean, Ted, you might remember a little better than me, but that was just an absolute ass whooping. I mean, we sent them back down the road to their dorms, like with their tail tucked between their legs. Like that was bad.
Well, we left no doubt who was the better team that day. Now, there's a fine line between ass whooping and just a good beat down, but
yeah.
Because there was a couple plays, including Edwards, the late touchdown.
We mentally defeated them.
Yeah, there you go.
What else did you need to see, man? I mean,
no, I'll agree with that. There's no question about that.
I mean, Michael Barrett, the linebacker, he said that we could sense when we broke their will. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I mean, and you I mean, we all remember like feeling the momentum and stuff in games. Like you can feel it. You can sense when a team is desperate, and when Edwards is running 80 yards, that kid is fast, man. He turns on the jets and he is just off. And you could just sense it.
I wasn't too comfortable when it was an 8-point game and they still had life, even though the wind was knocked out of their sails.
It's really Sainer still. Jared, you said it. Exactly. That play Sainer still made, they would have scored a touchdown right there. I think it would have been a 3-point game.
Who knows what happens if they cut it to 3 there.
Absolutely right. And what Jared said too, even though he hasn't played defensive back his wole career, I think he's a high draft choice, don't you?
Yeah.
What he's done this year.
Lions scoop him up. That's for damn sure. He's stepping into the defensive position, man, and just learned it right away. I mean, he's been starting since. It's not like he has come on later in the season. He's been one of our top corners, all year. Yeah. And it's funny, he's catching touchdown passes, less than a year ago. So
I kind of had a hunch that might have been one of the things Harbaugh might have pulled out of the bag. I had a hunch he might have done a Charles Woodson and had him run routes, offensively as well.
Why not? I mean, finally our wide receivers started to make some plays. I mean, even Ronnie Bell, big time pass interference. I don't know if you can say that was because he made some great play, but whatever. Right. I mean, love to see him clapping after it happened. So
he had a couple big catches, and the young tight end Loveland and Cornelius Johnson's one. I don't know if on the podcast I've said much, but definitely in some texts with my friends, I've said, I don't know why this guy's on the field, because earlier in the year, he wasn't really doing anything. And I've been very high on Angelo Anthony. I've just thought he's the best receiver we have. I've been maybe proven wrong a little bit there.
this year.
I mean, he's still young, so maybe to be determined there. But man, he stepped up. That the first Cornelius Johnson touchdown. So we were watching at my father-in-law's house, and then, like I said, we went over to the hotel. So I tried to time it out with like a long commercial break. But immediately when I got in the car, I turned on the radio, and right when I turned on the radio, that touchdown happened.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I don't know. And then 5 minutes later, the next Cornelius Johnson touchdown happened. I was like, I don't know if I can leave this car. This is like good luck or something. But I just love seeing the big plays. Like we've been clamoring for that from, as Michigan fans. We've watched Blake Corum just pound away, and end up with 220 yards rushing. And you're almost like, how did he get so many yards rushing?
Because he never breaks them off. He'll break off like 40 yarders, but he's not like those two Edwards runs. If that's Corum, they're probably 50-yard gains.
Right.
Yeah. Edwards does have the speed for sure. And it just goes to show you that Illinois game, if you don't have Corum or Edwards, you can see why it was a tight game. You got to have one of those guys in there. Here's a question for you. You don't play Corum against Purdue, do you?
No, I hope he's not even practicing. I mean, clearly he went out there for one run and he couldn't go. I mean, like they're showing all the clips of him warming up in pregame. And
what was
one of the big threads, I always reference on this podcast that it's all about Michigan, especially on game day. Those clips are getting shared over and over and over. Like, look, he's going to be good to go. And I was the one, imagine that. I'm the one saying, pump your brakes, man. Doing this in warmups is a lot different than that first cut that you make live in a game. And sure enough, the first run that he had, he goes to make a cut and immediately is like,
limped out.
I'm out, man.
And I'll be honest, I love Corum. We want him back. I mean, there's something with Edwards out there. I mean, we see with we saw it on those 2 touchdowns, man. If our offensive line is so good that if he can break through that first level, he's gone. And there's just something to be said about that. Yeah, he's not as good, 75% of the plays, definitely not a good, third and short, a goal line back. But
not a pounder.
At any point he can take it to the house. And you talk about a guy that it was a stud in high school. I mean, I remember watching him at state championship, West Bloomfield versus Davison, literally rushed for like 300 yards. And it was the same sort of speed that you saw on display, man. I mean, he was a no doubter in high school. He said, this guy's gonna be playing on Sundays one day. And we just saw that on Saturday.
Yeah.
What have they said all year? He's one of the best pass catchers on the team. I mean, it's tough with a broken hand, a cast on your hand, but he's one of the best pass catchers too. So he threw that pass in the Big Ten championship last year. He threw that dime to Roman Wilson. So, I mean, that kid he's a player, man, but you can't discount. So to answer your question, I hope Blake Corum isn't even thinking about playing this weekend, but if he can get healthy for the playoff, I think you have to, bring him back. But
it sounds like the injury he has too. It's a deep bone bruise. I forget who was talking about it. They had the same injury. They said it was a good solid 2-3 weeks before you started to feel normal. So if he can get by this game against Purdue, don't look ahead. He'll be healthy for the national championship.
Just sit him. I mean, if we can't beat Purdue without Corum, then maybe this whole season was a facade. So I just take your chances, man. Rest them up. Don't even suit him up.
Good point.
Maybe, it is what it is. We got to talk about this, man. I mean, McCarthy.
I talked about JJ McCarthy.
I know it.
I can't believe my dad. I will give him credit, man. He called it. I was talking to him about it before the game. He said JJ McCarthy's a gamer. I'm not worried about him at all. He's gonna have his best game to date, and he did. I didn't necessarily disagree with him, but I just was like under the impression like I got to see it before I believe it. And he made me a believer, man. I mean, so think about what we had. We had two key 5-stars on that field against Ohio State, who has 50. We had Sarin still, and we had McCarthy, and they might have been the 2 biggest players in that game. So it was just awesome to see him finally come together. My favorite play McCarthy made was when he had a run right along Ohio State's sideline. And Michigan wide receiver, I think it was somebody who doesn't play much, was kind of chirping with Ohio State. And McCarthy grabbed it right underneath his shoulder pads and was walking him back.
Pulled him away.
And that was one of my favorite plays. I mean, I'm glad we got him, man. That's a foxhole guy. I'll go to war against Georgia with him as my quarterback.
You can tell in the post-game interviews and anything you see, his players love playing for him. And it's crazy to say because I think people were saying the same thing about Cade McNamara, last year. They loved playing for him. So to go from McNamara to JJ is definitely a luxury. I think Joel Klatt was talking about it during the game that, you always see the video of JJ, like he meditates before the game. And I've seen him in interviews talk about how he thinks the mental preparation is almost as big as the physical preparation for games. And you can almost see it. I saw one of the Michigan photographers, I think Patrick Barron, I think is his name. He's at every game. He posts, pictures. He's a photographer for Michigan football. He posted a thread basically of JJ smiling throughout the game, even when they're losing, even after he goes 3 and out, even after, and he was making the comments. I think it was that photographer, but he was saying like, look at this kid, man. He's just cool. Kind of like what your dad said, Jared. He's just a gamer. I mean, at least what we've seen, he doesn't lose his cool. He stays in the moment. And like I said, Joel Klatt was talking about it. He stays in the moment, even when things are tight and, he's missed a couple throws and everyone's questioning if he can hit the deep ball and all that kind of stuff. He stayed in it. And I mean, he's a hell of a player. You just, obviously he's probably got a few things to work on or whatever, but I mean, he stepped right in as a sophomore, 19-year-old kid, and he's led him to a 12-0 season again.
And what we saw on Saturday was all we needed all year. Just hit those wide open deep balls.
Right.
Like they are there, man. If you do that, we're gonna put up 40 a game. And he finally kind of just clicked. And he was hitting them. We don't need him to be Tom Brady. We just need him to be solid, be like I said, that calming presence on this team, and hit your throws when you need to hit them. And he did.
Yep. Yeah, he made those throws on the biggest stage, and that says enough right there. He was ready to play that game, as was the whole team. And again, it goes back to Harbaugh, the staff. I mean, this team believes in themselves, and we've said it now at least a couple weeks and maybe more. This is the year, boys. Go for the national championship. It's not going to be set up any easier for you down the road.
No,
you're in great position. As I said, they'll probably be number 2.
Right.
Back to Ohio State for one more second. If TCU or Southern Cal loses, do you think they're going to put Ohio State in with one loss?
They could. I saw Heather Dinich. She was talking about it, I think on Get Up or something this morning, and she thinks that Ohio State would get in above any of the other teams that they're throwing out there, even Alabama and some other teams, because their big win, they beat Penn State and then they beat Notre Dame earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm.
And if their one big loss is to Michigan, who's like number 2, that's like a good loss, I guess. So they could get in. I'm with Jared though. I don't think they should. When you get beat the way that you did on your home field in, your biggest game of the year,
right?
I don't think that Notre Dame win is all that impressive. What Notre Dame ended up with 3-4 losses, so whatever. Penn State, that's a good win, but is Penn State really that good? I don't know.
No, we don't. None of us think they're good.
No,
I think Bama. If that shakes out, I 100% think Bama should be in before them.
Yeah.
Do you think Bama they will get in?
They lost on last second plays in hostile environments, man. Whereas compared to Ohio State against a half healthy Michigan team at home, just getting drubbed, it doesn't sit right with me if Ohio State makes it. I mean, Nick Saban's shown us before. He's tried and true. I mean, I know we don't want to base this off of, things that have happened in the past, but You tell me this should be your number one barometer. Who would I rather face in the college football playoff, Ohio State or Nick Saban in Alabama? Ohio State 10 times out of 10. That should be that should be your number one decider for who should be in.
Well, look at this scenario. Just think about this. If Michigan stays number 2 and Ohio State sneaks in at number 4, wow. How about a Michigan-Ohio State national championship game, huh? Think about that.
You're not going to see it. Georgia's going to whoop them by 30, but it would be funny to see.
Still got to play the game, man.
Still got to play the game. I mean, speaking of Georgia too, I mean, they're the clear number 1. I think they're going to stay at number 1, but they've looked beatable all year. I think we clearly found out last year that they were just on another level. I mean, they had all NFL players at every single position, basically. This year, though, they're definitely beatable. So like we said, I mean, I've said it the last 4 or 5 weeks, whatever. If Michigan plays their game, I think they can really beat anyone. And you just, no turnovers. Don't give up those big plays and, come up with big plays like Sainer still breaking that one up. And especially like we mentioned, having a receiver like Cornelius Johnson step up and make a play like that. Michigan can beat anyone. They can beat anyone. They could also lose to anyone. That's just how it goes.
Here's my thought. I want TCU. I know that everybody kind of wants TCU. That's where I'm at. I don't want to see USC. I mean, Caleb Williams is
he's a future Lions quarterback.
He is so fun to watch, man. I mean, he's small, he's faster than hell, and he's accurate. And my favorite part about Caleb Williams, dude, he wears his heart on his sleeve in those games. I mean, you're watching it, he's losing his mind during it, in a good way. There's like sometimes like a Spencer Rattler, maybe in the bad way, but he wears his heart on his sleeve. I love watching him play. I don't want to see him. I want to see TCU. And then I'm not even worried about Georgia as of now. Worry about Georgia if we make it to the national championship.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't got to worry about them. That's a nice thing. You know, we saw it last year where we were deer in headlights going into the college football playoff. It'll be good to face a team that's more our level in the semifinal, maybe get more of our wits about us, get some confidence, and then we'll see what happens in the national championship.
Yep.
Agree with that 100%, man. If they can make it to the natty, man, I'm saying it's 50-50. I don't care if it's Georgia or not, you know.
Yep.
Go get them, Wolverines.
Well,
wait, how about I gotta kind of remember when I kept saying how I didn't understand the spread, and you basically doubled down and said it's exactly what the line should have been. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, not now, obviously. I mean,
hey, you were trying to make me sound like an idiot last week. I just thought
wasn't making you sound like an idiot. I thought 7 points was about right, but you know, what did I know? What I
learned is
all praise to you, young man. All praise.
I should never second guess my gut, man. My eyes and my gut were telling me what exactly was going to happen on Saturday, but everybody else around me made me second guess myself. So, lesson learned.
You did say MSU was going to beat Penn State too, or you said it wouldn't surprise you. Mel Tucker has them ready.
I mean, he didn't. God damn, he didn't.
Sean Clifford ate them up.
We don't even have to talk about the Spartans if we don't want to, but
no. The Spartans probably are not going to make a bowl game. They could slip in with 5-7 record, but I doubt it. But unless maybe in Motor City Bowl, possibly.
Hey, I hope they do. That'd be hilarious if they go to the Motor City Bowl, play like an Eastern or something like that. They probably don't even want to have that.
Yeah, they should probably turn that down if that happens. I saw three teams were preseason top 25 and are not bowl eligible: Michigan State, Texas A&M, and Miami.
Right.
Kind of crazy.
Josh Gaddis.
Where was Michigan in the preseason? Where were they at? Do you remember?
Were
they top 10?
Top 10. I always think we were always top 10. Yeah.
Okay.
Around number 9 or something like that. But
sounds about right. But now they're if they just don't look past Purdue, Purdue can be dangerous. They are called the spoiler makers for a reason.
Yeah.
Does Michigan get in the playoffs if they lose that game? Is it a given?
I think so, just because it's only one loss and you got the big wins over Ohio State and Penn State. It would all depend on how everything else shakes out, though.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That'd be fun. It'd be interesting thing to see. I don't think it's a given that they get in. That's for damn sure.
Well, if they do, it'd be probably in that 4th slot, and they'd be taking.
And that's you might as well not even be in it at that point. You might as well not even make it. So,
yeah. All right, let's not even think those thoughts. Anything else we want to talk about with Michigan before we talk Detroit Lion football, maybe?
Man, just what a time to be alive, Jared. You mentioned the tweet that I sent out about I was talking to some friends, again, that thread, and we were talking about, remembering the 90s. I mean, Ted, you remember that stretch in the 90s when Michigan was dominating John Cooper and Ohio State.
John Cooper, yeah. Yep.
Dominating Michigan State, and it was just a beautiful time for Michigan football. And then Jared went through the Rich Rod and Brady Hoke era and, was wondering, why the hell do we even care about Ohio State? All they do is beat us by 30 every weekend or whatever.
Exactly.
So it's just, it's crazy to think about that. Ted, you remember Bo and Woody. I remember, those 90s and, some of those teams and the early 2000s, 2006, the 1 versus 2.
Mm-hmm.
But Jared, that the generation that, you're growing up when Michigan's just getting dominated. So the kids now who are just now really starting to pay attention, seeing these last 2 years, it's got to be awesome for them as Michigan fans to sit there and be like, man, look at this. Jim Harbaugh, he came back as Jared laid out. He was very much on the hot seat looking at NFL jobs, came back. He has smashed Ohio State the last 2 years. Ryan Day is on the hot seat now because of it. And, if you're a young Michigan fan, this has got to be like, man, you're setting your bar pretty high. You're setting your bar pretty high.
Yeah, before Jared comments, I just want to say, man, I wish you would have had the chance to sit down and watch that game from beginning to end. I know you had to work and still got a flavor of it, but it was something else watching the entire game. It was incredible.
I was kind of creeping myself out. I was watching it, Saturday night just by myself, like the 30-minute highlights on YouTube. I was like laughing out loud at some of those plays, man. I mean, just wide open Cornelius Johnson, Edwards just running. My favorite part about the Edwards first touchdown run was you see him break free. And then there's the safety, and he's like kind of still sort of like at like maybe 80% speed, sizes up the safety for a second, and then just turns on the burners. And you're just not going to catch him. That's one of my new favorite sayings. You're not going to catch him as soon as a guy breaks into the secondary. And you can say that every time for Edwards.
So you guys noticed on the second Cornelius Johnson long touchdown, you noticed who he smoked in coverage, right?
Was it Cam Martinez, Muskegon?
Yeah. Muskegon quarterback legend Cam Martinez.
I didn't realize that.
Went to Michigan. Well, I love that. Did you hear the story? Basically, we flipped a 5-star corner because Ohio State basically was like took him for granted, because he's an in-state guy. Like, oh, you're coming to Ohio State no matter what. And Michigan didn't view it that way. You love to hear those stories because we know how that's. I mean, you saw it. Cam Martinez, he's at Ohio State. He should be on the Michigan secondary right now. But hey, it is what it is. We'll take the guys we have.
Absolutely. Yep. And Michigan right now with Harbaugh and the mojo he's got going, and the university itself. I mean, they are a brand that somebody wants to go play for. They've got the attention of all the 5 stars now. And if they keep it rolling, if they can get to the national championship game, maybe win that game, oh my God, it's going to be a fun 10-year stretch as Harbaugh there on the sideline, man. It's going to be awesome. Yep. Hey, by the way, we should tell people too that we do this little podcast on YouTube, and why not check out our YouTube channel, right? I mean, I'm looking at myself right now. Shit, I look like Don Brown. What the hell is going on with me?
You do? Yeah, I've never thought about that. You do have a Don Brown look.
I mean, I got the Don Brown Michigan shirt and the old Bo Schembechler hat. I'm ready to go.
You've got the goatee though. He goes just mustache.
You just had the stash, yeah.
I hope Don Brown is somewhere smiling, man, because watching those defenses back in the day, they were puzzling, and it's just like I said before, it's hilarious to see Ohio State dealing with that now, and the unsung hero John Harbaugh. I love this, the feeder system to the Ravens. Let's just keep that rolling. Even if Minter leaves, you just give us somebody else that's been on this Ravens staff, send them to us, and we'll just keep doing this time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems to be working.
Well, talking about the pros, I mean, that's a pretty good little segue into the Lions on Thanksgiving, Oh,
man, I almost forgot about it. That Michigan game almost made me forget about it.
Yeah. I mean, they're so close. They're so close, man. They had the Bills on the run. Again, Dan Campbell. I mean, he gets a lot of grief for his in-game management, but I think I tweeted it. Where's the coaches in his ear? Where are they at telling him, hey, coach, we need to do this. We need to run the ball. We need to make them burn a timeout. I mean, my God.
Yeah, he needs a veteran coach up in the box or something. Like a Tom Coughlin or something like that. To just help us with that sort of thing. I mean, we can harp on the negative. I mean, maybe we would have been more negative based on Thursday. Yeah. I've got to come full around on this staff and this team. I mean, they play inspired. That's all you can ask. Well, we can live with a loss, especially when it's something kind of as dumb as that. Just Josh Allen being Josh Allen, making a play when they need it. But they play inspired. They play hard. They have fun. Campbell's, number one coach to root for. I mean, we've been in a lot worse places as Lions fans throughout my life. I'm okay with where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, they play hard. They play inspired. Everything you just said, Jared. I mean, they don't lay down. We've seen plenty of Lions teams. Matt Patricia's Lions teams were just a complete mess. And some of these other guys, Marty Morningwig, right. Some of these other coaches, their teams were just bad. This team's actually pretty good. They just need some more players. They don't have a Josh Allen. Yeah, Jared Goff is okay, but they don't have a Josh Allen. They need some more elite players. Okay, you've got Aiden Hutchinson. Now you got to build around that, and you've got to hope that some of these other younger players, Rodrigo, and some of the other defenders actually develop, and stuff like that. So they're right there. But it's hard for me not to be a little, I don't know, SOL-ish and be like, how many times have they been right there? You know what I mean? How many times have they been in those games right there? And then, they get Josh Allen or, Justin Tucker hits a 66-yard field goal and they lose that game. It's just is Dan Campbell ever going to learn? You know what I mean? How many times are we going to sit here and say Dan Campbell in these in-game decisions, head scratchers, I think it's something you can learn. He's still a young head coach, if you want to say that, but there's something there. I'm not all out. Yeah. I'm not saying this team's trash, fire Dan Campbell, but it is what it is.
I tell you what, here's the thing that I love knowing about this team. They're going to come back ready to play next week.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't say that about a lot of NFL teams, man.
Right.
And I know people will call for Campbell's job, bitch about him, on 97-1 today and all this sort of thing. I love him. Let's roll him back next year. I don't care how the rest of this year he is with at least one more year in my book. And I'll be sad if we ever do say goodbye to him, because I really do think he's so close to really breaking through as a head coach. And if it's not with this team, he's probably never going to get another chance. And I do think he's a good coach. I think he knows how to handle a locker room, which in the NFL, that's 90% of the battle.
Right.
Yeah, I think he can definitely turn it around. I mean, like I said, right at the beginning, he needs an older coach that's been there, done that, in his headset, helping him out in those end of game, end of half decisions that he obviously seems to struggle with when you're sitting there watching it on TV. Of course, you're not on the sideline in the heat of the moment, but we all know football and we're all calling for the same thing, and he's not getting it relayed to him. I don't know if he's overruling somebody telling him what to do, but you know, that last pass, if it would have been a good pass, we wouldn't even be talking about it, right?
That's the thing. I mean, that's how
Yeah,
that's how a lot of those play calls go. Obviously, if they complete that pass, it's like the Michigan, the running back jump pass to the tight end.
Mm-hmm.
If that gets picked off or gets knocked down,
we're laughing at Michigan.
Right. We're like, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
Obviously. It got completed, and now it's like one of the best plays in Michigan football history. If Jared Goff completes that pass, you know, and then it's like, what a ballsy call, what a throw, you know, whatever. It was a terrible decision.
If that jump pass would have been a good pass, it would have been 6 points.
It would have been 6 points, right? I did see, not getting back to that, but Mullings, the kid who threw that, he said he didn't even see Schoonmaker. He knew the play, so he knew where he was supposed to be, so he just jumped and threw the ball. And luckily it landed where it did, but so that's kind of crazy. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just some of those. That's where the Jared Goff thing comes into me. Like, he's an okay player. I think one thing that will take this team over the top is a better quarterback. Maybe Caleb Williams, who Jared was talking about. But you know, Goff is okay. He makes some good throws, but then I don't know what the hell he was doing on that last throw. He just kind of chucked it up for no reason.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I've gone kind of back and forth on Goff. I like him. You know, I mean,
he's okay.
If we don't end up with a top 5 pick and, you know, there's not that stud quarterback on the board, I'm okay with giving him another year.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have somebody to fill in, but if it's not on the board, it's not on the board. Take the best player available. So if it's not Williams or Stroud, I'm okay with waiting another year. I mean, he's showed enough to me that he's serviceable. He's got a good head on his shoulders, good leader. Guy that you want to root for. I mean, what more can you want in an NFL quarterback?
Well, there hasn't been a lot wrong with that offense. I mean, they've got the offensive line. They got, it seemed to be decent tight ends, even though they got rid of Hawkinson. Their wide receivers with St. Brown and the rookie that we haven't even seen yet. Their offense is okay. Think about it. Josh Allen had 28 seconds to go in the game, right? The Lions didn't make them burn that timeout, which could have been the difference in the game going to overtime. But you're on defense. You gave up the big yardage chunk plays. That's where they need to really concentrate, is solidifying that defense, in my viewpoint.
Yeah,
they got to get a quarterback too. But
like we've said, they've got pieces to build around on defense. You just need more better players. You can't just have these dudes you're plugging in here and there and expect to win. The overtime thing is funny. So it was only me and one of my brother-in-laws left in the living room watching the end of the game. Everyone else had made it out to the garage and outside because they were over it.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like it was going to overtime, obviously. 28 seconds left or whatever. He was like, I'm going to run to the garage and grab another drink real quick. By the time he got back in the house, game was over. I was like, he was like, what happened? I was like, Lions. The Lions.
Yeah, and people will blame that loss on Campbell. At some point, man, think about that. The 26 seconds. We all know what the defense is running. Prevent, keep them in front of you. Don't give up a big play. Some point, it just comes down to the Jimmies and the Joes. Just keep them. You can't. The one thing you couldn't let happen, you let happen. That's on the defensive backs. That's on the players on the field. That's not on coaching.
Right. Fair points. But it is, we'll just leave it with this. What you were starting to talk about, Matt, it is hard not to look at that game and not say SOL. We think it's not, but it's a typical Lion loss that they should have won that game. You know, national television. Would
have been nice. Hey, would have been nice. Maybe it's because Michigan beat Ohio State. I'm in a better mood, man. Whatever. It's the Bills. They're one of the top 5 teams in the NFL. They played them tough. They played inspired. They kept us watching for 4 hours. They entertained us. Hey, they just didn't win it.
I'll give you that.
What's stupid is they're still in all those graphics, for the playoffs. They're still in the hunt at 4-7 because the NFC is so bad. So they've got Jacksonville, very winnable game.
Be a win.
Minnesota, they honestly probably should have beat them the first time around. The Jets, who, they're in the playoffs, but, they're the Jets. And then Carolina on Christmas Eve. So those are 4 games right there.
Yeah.
And then they finished with the Bears and Green Bay, who, both of those teams aren't very good. So,
yeah,
I mean,
they could go on a run. They could.
They're going to do it to us again. They're going to win a couple of these and be
Just
like right
enough.
there. Yeah.
Go Lions, hashtag since 57. All right. We're still giddy about the Michigan game, but we're gonna move on and have our prep spotlight brought to you by Capital Sports Fieldhouse right after this.
Well, it was a great weekend at Ford Field. Always is, man. A lot of good games, a lot of blowouts. It's a positive day. We're on high vibes. I'm not going to sit here and say how I think the MHSAA should shorten their divisions or do this or that. Let's just talk about the good things that happened. The game of the weekend, in my opinion, was the D7 game. Ted, you hyped it up, how good Traverse City St. Francis was. They played Jackson Lumen Christi. I mean, it was the game of the weekend. So basically what it was, I mean, Josh Sellers, I was really impressed with St. Francis, their offense. I mean, different formation every play. At one point, he had a perfectly dialed up, kind of hid the running back right behind the offensive line, just went right up the chute, right up the middle. Quarterback just happened to overthrow him, but it should have been a touchdown. And then you got Herb Brogan on the other side, legendary Jackson Lumen Christi coach. My favorite moment of that entire game and the entire weekend was, so down 12-0 at half. Everything is going St. Francis's way.
Sure was.
Star quarterback for Jackson Lumen Christi, Joe Lathers, superstar athlete. I mean, in the semifinal, we have a highlight of him hurdling a kid on his way to the end zone. Gathers around all the Jackson Lumen Christi's offense, huddles them up, and you can just see him, impassionately speaking to them right before they go into the half, come back out. He's making plays left and right. I mean, just a stud player. Ends up getting them the win. And, Herb Brogan, who's won 11 of these things, you would think, man, he doesn't really give a shit about this game. I mean, he would look as happy as anyone on that sideline afterward, because you look at that team and they lost their first 3 games of the year. 0-3, they rattled off 11 straight wins. And you could just tell he was happiest man out on that field. So that was a really cool game. And I mean, Division 7, every year it delivers, man. There's 4 top programs. We talked about it last week. I mean, New Lothrop, Traverse City, St. Francis, Pewamo, and Jackson Lumen Christi now. I mean, it's just such a fun division with 4 really good head coaches at all those programs. So it's one of the best games every weekend.
You talk about Brogan. I mean, 40 years on the sideline, almost 400 wins. We talked about Clint Galveston, his 145. Brogan, 400 wins almost. Think about that. Legend. I couldn't believe he was still coaching them.
Yeah,
that's a lot, man.
I was really impressed with them. I mean, a kid like Lathers, I mean, you see a moment like that where I'm sitting in the truck. I'm like, dude, this team has no shot. All the momentum was St. Francis's way, and it's just cool to see a kid kind of rally the troops like that. Great leader, of course.
I'll lead you into this too, Jared. I know you like the bigger classes, and you've talked about Dante more this season, but this first time I've had a chance to see him. That kid,
how was that?
That kid can play, man. I can see why he could turn Michigan State around if they can get him to decommit, man, because he's awesome.
It's funny watching a kid like that compared to all these other high school quarterbacks where it's basically like pre-snap read, pick your receiver out before the snap and throw it. He's reading the entire field. And it's like he's playing chess. Everybody else is playing checkers. He's got sidearm deliveries. He's accurate as hell, makes the right read. Just a calm, cool, collected. I mean, we had a cool shot of him right before the very first snap. He takes a huge, deep breath. And I mean, they're on a different level. I mean, they might've been the best team in the state. They tried to schedule Belleville for whatever reason. The PSL blocked it earlier this year, but I mean, he's the best player I've seen in my lifetime in Michigan. But one that might argue that is Bryce Underwood for Belleville, sophomore quarterback, undefeated, has never lost a game. Just
a sophomore too. So he's going to be around 2 more years.
Yeah. Had 5 touchdowns his freshman year in the state championship, had 5 basically again this year. Number 1 ranked sophomore in the entire country. He's a star, man. I mean, and what I loved about Belleville, I mean, they've had all this stuff going down with their head coach, getting suspended for 2 years, fired. Juwan Rogers steps in as the interim head coach. They roll into Ford Field all wearing sunglasses and, full suits. It was awesome.
Yeah. And they kind of smashed Caledonia, right? And Caledonia was a hell of a team. Caledonia is really good, and they just smashed them, right?
Yeah, they did. I mean, Belleville, as long as that kid's your quarterback, I mean, it's going to be either them or Cass Tech in Division I next year. I've talked about that kid for Cass Tech, Corey Sadler Jr., a true freshman. He's a stud too. So it'll be fun to see those two quarterbacks kind of battle it out for the next couple of years. Yeah. Moving on from there, Dan Roan, Warren De La Salle, 6 titles now. He could win 500 if he keeps coaching. I know college kind of might be calling his name soon. If I'm a GLIAC school, I'm on the phone with Dan Roan this offseason. I'm trying to get him there. I mean, he's so impressive. The stud quarterback they have, in my opinion, Mr. Football, Brady Drogosh, Cincinnati commit. Who knows? Maybe he'll flip to Wisconsin now.
Yeah.
I mean, they just didn't even get touched. The game was over as soon as they stepped on the field, just like it was last year in the state finals.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one hell of a coach.
Yeah, he is. And the Pilots have a pretty good sports program going right now. Back-to-back football, and they won Division I basketball last year.
Right.
That's not
It's
too
not bad.
bad.
I mean, when you've got those kind of athletes on the football field, a lot of them are going to play basketball. So you do kind of see that sometimes. But we talked about before Frankenmuth and how they've been rolling, and Gladwin too. But I mean, from what I didn't watch the game, from what I saw on Twitter, that was also, I saw some people saying that was the game of the weekend.
Great game. I mean, ended up on a basically a game-winning field goal with a second left from a kid who this coach had to go out and recruit basically before the offseason, like find a kicker. And this kid comes in. They had a female that kicked their PATs, and he would kick their field goals. And the biggest play of the game came down to him. You know what I love about Gladwin? One, they're tougher than hell, which I can always respect, man. I mean, they just had some real slobber knockers on that team.
They did.
But my favorite thing, 9 two-way starters. A lot of times in high school, man, these coaches, they overthink it. I mean, I hate to do this, but I mean, just take a look at Corona. I mean, Wyatt Bauer, he plays quarterback. That's it. He should never leave the field. He should be, your punt returner, your kick returner, starting at safety, starting at quarterback. And this Gladwin coach, realizes that, man. These kids are high school kids. They're having fun. Keep them on the field, man. I mean, they're made of Gumby. They're not going to get hurt. Let them run. And that's what I love to see, man. I mean, just a good core of 9 stud players, and they got it done. I mean, just a lot of fun to see that happen. And I mean, it's a shame for Frankenmuth and Phil Martin. They kind of seem to be the Buffalo Bills, where they kind of can't get over that hump. But still, nothing to kind of shake their head. I mean, that's still a hell of a program there.
Well, it was a great weekend down there. Bills. Yeah.
I was going to say Ted's Ugly Bears, kind of the same thing, right? Like they just can't get over the hump.
Bridesmaids, man, lost 26-20. I mean, Whiteford, their second title, first one for their new head coach. Their previous coach, Jason Mensing, a little trivia for you. He was a one-time Owosso Trojan head coach for a couple of years. He won a state championship.
And recruit him back.
You're right. Try and get him back.
You talked about Corona. I mean, Goodrich won the Flint Metro League and went on all the way to the championship game. They just kind of had a dud game against the Sailors.
Yeah, it's just better athletes out there. I mean, and I will say this. I mean, how many times have you covered Goodrich, and yet you've never quite cracked this Tom Allward story? The first player ever signed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, what the hell, man? I mean, you've been doing this game.
I brought that up somewhere down the line, Jared. I think I could find it in my pregame notes.
Definitely. You know what's going to happen now. Ted's going to be up until 3 a.m. tonight trying to find that game. And
I guarantee you, I brought that up before.
Hey, I'll say, man, I've listened to your broadcast. I don't know. I don't ever remember hearing that factoid.
For people who don't know, though, what are you talking about?
So basically, Tom Allward, Goodrich's head coach, I think 30 seasons. I mean, legendary coach. Played in the NFL when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, were an expansion team. He was the very first player they signed. And I don't remember, he had a long college, playing career obviously as well, but just a great coach. And I'll say this about Goodrich, man. I mean, they're tough. They were, if that game was played in, a snowstorm, I think Goodrich maybe wins it. But I mean, GRSC has a stud basketball player at wideout, Jake Vermas, had 150 yards receiving, eight receptions. Kid's a stud basketball player as well. There's a little bit too many athletes out there. I mean, Goodrich never really sniffed the end zone, but they played hard all the way through. Yeah. But they just didn't have the horses to bring it home.
Speaking of Grand Rapids South Christian, so obviously I have a little bit of a connection to them. That's the school that beat my team in football and in basketball. They won state titles in both of those sports. So they stole. I stand by it. They stole 2 state titles from us. But the connection is their head coach now, Danny Brown. He was on the teams that beat us. He played wide receiver and defensive back on their football team. Really? And then he played on their basketball team too. So I remember he actually laid me out a couple times. I caught the ball both times.
No, man. You know what's funny? We had a flashback pack. He caught a touchdown in the state championship game back in 2002. I didn't even connect the dots that it was that was the same team that would have beat you. But
he's a good player.
Coach. Yeah,
he was a good player. I was just going to tell this story real quick. You obviously know a little more background than I do, but so one of my buddies, obviously over in Grand Rapids, one of my buddies went to a college over there and lived. He just hopped on Craigslist and found a house to live in, and it was actually 3 Grand Rapids South Christian guys that a kid from Corona went and moved in with these guys. And right when he went in and saw South Christian, he was like, my friend, he played football too. he was like, "Oh God, you guys went to South Christian." So obviously that brought up all these stories and stuff
Right.
like that. Danny Brown was there, and he was like to my buddy, he was like, "Do you know Matt Burns? You know, are you friends with him?" I mean, obviously it's Corona, you're friends, you know everyone. But he was like, "Yeah, that's one of my good buddies." He was like, "Man, I drilled him a couple times."
Good God, he must have really got you. I don't remember that. I've seen
Apparently.
the footage of that game, but
A couple good calls. I'll say Ted. I've got him if we want to. Ted with a couple good calls on him too.
Hey,
But
thanks.
I caught the ball. I'm gonna say I caught the ball.
Yeah, but
That's what
I mean,
counts.
just a great weekend at Ford Field. I mean, it's always such a fun. I mean, you're working your balls off from Sunday night till Sunday morning when you finish it up. But it's fun the whole way, man. I mean, it's such a cool story. I mean, like I said, that Lather story, Jackson Lumen Christie, how they never quit. I mean, that's my biggest takeaway. That's probably what I'll remember most from this weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that because that was such an X's and O's coach versus coach game. That's like that's my heaven right there watching that game. So that was a lot of fun.
Before we end this segment, because I want to send a few salutes out to some all-staters from our area. But so you were there basically from what, 4 or 5 a.m. both days until close
11
to midnight. 11.
Yeah.
That's a couple long days. But I was going to say, you
some
talked
good
about
overtime.
You talked about it a little bit last week. I mean, Bally Sports, man, you guys have a great crew, from your on-air talent to the production you put out there. Those games are tremendously well done, and it's 8 games of tremendous viewing. I didn't get a chance to watch every single play of every single game, but I recorded them and I'd fast forward between each play, and maybe see the packages that you were involved in.
Right.
And it was really well done.
No, I'll say this. I mean, and we talked last week about, kind of some of the play-by-play guys, Shepard, Dickerson. I tell you what, I think our color guy, Rob Rubik, in terms of dissecting a high school football game, I don't know if there's anyone else with him. He's so good. I love hearing him call games. Him and Matt Shepard will call a lot of the Eastern Michigan football games, so they're a great crew together. But yeah, I think he kind of opened my eyes a little bit. Obviously, I've seen him call a lot of great games before, but I just thought he always does a great job.
Who's the young play-by-play guy?
Grant Perry.
No, play-by-play.
Oh, Evan Stockton.
Yeah, I think that guy's really good, and he's got a big future. He's not very old, is he? He's like,
no,
is he 30?
Young.
Is he even 30 yet?
No, 20. I bet he's probably 26, 27. He works hard, man. I mean, he's doing a different, he's at Western Michigan this night doing basketball game. He's at, wherever else doing a volleyball game. Then he's nonstop working. He works hard.
He did the Prep Pigskin preview a couple months ago.
Yep, that as well.
I think, well, not that the dude cares, but I think he's really good and has a future. I mean, he's got a great delivery, and I think big things coming for him. All right. Well, before we wrap up this segment, man, I just got to say, all state teams came out. There was 3 from Goodrich made first team, according to the Football Coaches Association. Corunna offensive lineman Jake Nichols made first team. Wyatt Bauer made it as an athlete, and he made it for his stats he put up as a quarterback, his play on defensive, as a defensive back, and special teams. So congratulations to Wyatt Bauer Jr., all 8 first team as an athlete. First team quarterback in Division 5 was Nick Wheeler of Gladwin and Alex Petersburg of Williamston. And Corunna beat the Hornets, so that was cool to see. Durand had an all-stater and Dylan McDonald, and Langsburg had a wide receiver, Connor Hulleberger, made first team All-State. And for New Lothrop, offensive lineman Jaden Curry, defensive lineman Grayson Orr, and an 8-player football Division II for Morris, Gage Cartier on the defensive line. So we were pretty well represented in our area. Nice. First team All-Staters.
That is a cool award. I mean, you got that the rest of your life. You can say that.
I remember my buddy Cooper, my senior year. He was a unanimous All-State. I mean, that's something to be proud of. For sure. Those all conference awards, they can sometimes be a little bit convoluted, maybe a little bit insider politicky, but those all state, man, you got to be a legit ball player to win those. Yeah. So that's cool. Now we just need Mid-Michigan to win a state title.
Right.
That's
What does Corunna, since we're Cavaliers, I'll end it with this. What do they need to do to maybe make an appearance at Ford Field and get a state championship? We know what's that?
I said drop to D6.
No.
No, but they could in D5. That would definitely help, but no, I don't think they're that far off. That was my biggest takeaway from this weekend. I mean, if Goodrich can make it, then Corunna can make it in D5, 100%. They just
you got to have some luck. You got to get the right matchups. That's obviously a big part. I think what you said, Jared, is spot on. you've got a few guys who are clearly your best players. They should not leave the field, even if, you don't want them to get hurt. You don't want to lose your quarterback. Obviously, your all-state quarterback. You don't want to lose him. But, you've got a few players that should play all the time. Maybe it's what, Durand, John Webb was talking to us. I know Coach Herrick has those guys working out and everything, but, Coach Webb told us how they brought in
Amari Coleman.
To coach, speed and do all these off-season. Maybe they need to commit a little more to the off-seaon training regimen or something. But
we can talk about coaching. Obviously, it's important. They do that in the locker room. The players in the locker room. I mean, I just told you, you see it from these kids, man, where they face adversity. I mean, Gladwin had no right win in that game. Right. A couple, they just kept battling, man. And I saw with Jackson Lumen Christie, same thing. Just one, leader quarterback that rallies the troops, keeps their heads on straight. I mean, that's so important when these teams are playing. Right. And so I just think it's going to be one in the weight room, like said Matt, and out on the track, and especially in the locker room.
Amen. I'll say this to finish off my reliving my glory days. Even though I still stand by, we could have beaten Grand Rapids South Christian. They 100% were in better shape than us, and I can say that now. 20 years later, I can eat my crow, or whatever you want to say. They clearly were bigger, faster, stronger than us. We probably could have beat them, right? 7 out of 10 times or something like that. But we were getting pushed around a little bit, and so I think about that. Like we didn't have the weight room that you had, Jared. It got built after I graduated, of course, and so I think that's a huge part, having that commitment. We worked hard in the summer. I'm not taking anything away from us, but that was an eye-opening thing when we went up against that South Christian team. It was like, holy shit, these guys
and it's one of those things. I mean, I would love to see how that we need to have Snooze to You do a deep dive on how that bracket was set up that year. It really makes no sense how you guys are facing a team 2 hours away, both two top teams in the state, 9-0. I mean, I know that's no excuse, and maybe you guys, lose somewhere else along the way, but it just isn't right that you guys had to play that game as early as you did. Nothing you can do about it now. I mean, it is what it is. But if I was at that point in time, I would love to have seen how that shook out, how it did.
Yeah, it's cool to see that they got a hometown kid as their head coach. So that is
well. We love our high school football, that's for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of, I know we're about to sign off, but Jared, you brought up GLIAC earlier. Some players going to GLIAC. I was going to bring up at some point. There's a big one in GLIAC this weekend. Ferris and number 1 Grand Valley State
Ferris
in Allendale.
Grand Valley.
Oh, it's gonna that place is gonna be on fire, man. That's what makes this game so. I hate it. Obviously we're Ferris State guys. Would love it to be a home game, but it's a whole nother animal at Lubbers Stadium. It's incredible. It's gonna be a great atmosphere. Hopefully they have good weather. That's the only thing that can maybe put a damper on things, but that should be a fun one.
Yeah, well, it's the semifinals, right? It's the AAA Division II semifinals.
Is it the semis or it's not the regional?
I don't know. It's hard to follow. I feel like they have so many games.
I don't think it's the semis yet.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. If you want to sign off, I can get clarification.
Yeah. All right.
It is cool. Well, I'll say while Jared's looking it up, I think it is cool how D2 does it. How you get to host games. It's not a neutral field. I think that's cool. There's something. There's like a reward for Grand Valley, being number 1. You get to host these playoff games. That's cool.
Well, I hope D1 goes that way. They've talked about it.
It's the quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals.
That's what I thought. Yeah. All right. Well, it should be a heck of a game. Did you have the start time there? Is it noon, 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock, I believe.
Is it? And it's probably on ESPNU or ESPN. Right. What's their streaming
I think they
service?
stream it online as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't watched it. I will watch it on Saturday, but that's a problem for me to figure out on Saturday. I haven't watched them all year, so I'll figure it out on Saturday.
I'm with you.
It's a build up to that Big Ten championship, and probably 8 o'clock, 8:30.
8 o'clock. Well, it probably won't kick off till close to 8:30.
I tell you what, I don't care if it's Purdue. There's something about that Big Ten championship. It's a fun game, man. We saw it last year when we just blitzed Iowa. I mean, I can't wait for this game. It's always awesome to see them play in Lucas Oil under those lights.
Yep.
With Jim Harbaugh's retired jersey up there in the rafters.
Forgot about that.
Yeah.
Go blue, man. Go blue. Well, this has been the 3 Point Podcast, fellas. A lot of fun talking football, especially Michigan football. And this has been presented by Memorial Healthcare, home of the Now Community Wellness Center. Sign up, get in shape, do a whole lot more over there. It's a great facility, great people, all kinds of good stuff. Sauna, lap pool, locker rooms, full workout facility. Go online at memorialhealthcare.org or give them a call, 989-720-CARE. We're also teamed with Skymint Cannabis, Michigan's leader in the industry. many locations, over 15 locations in the state of Michigan alone. Check out the Skymint Reserve. Make sure you sign up for their rewards program. Check them out at skymint.com. Go to the Corunna store, 3.20 for a 20% discount on Skymint products. Also, make sure you let all our great local partners know you listen in and enjoy the program. They include AZEE Printing Solutions, Capital Sports Fieldhouse, Pro Real Estate and Auction, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, and Success Group Mortgage and Servicing. Make sure you follow us on social media at 3 Point Pod and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This episode of 3 Point Podcast recorded at StreamYard.com, and the Z92.5 first game of the year in boys basketball, Friday, December 9th, Owosso at Corunna. So until next week, so long, everybody. Peace and love. Be kind. Thanks for listening.